The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ, according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to Jesus. And the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling and saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them." So Jesus told them this parable. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me." So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare, but here I am, dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father and will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands.' So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his slaves, 'Quickly bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him, and put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, and get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now his elder son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. He called one of the slaves and asked what was going on. He replied, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf, because he has got him back safe and sound.' Then he became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, 'Listen, for all these years I have been working like a slave for you, and I have never disobeyed your command. Yet you have never given me even a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came back, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him.' And the father said to him, 'Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours.' But we had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and has come back to life. He was lost and has been found." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
In the name of God, Creator, Christ, and Comforter. Amen. As Catherine Lincoln reminded me, in England today is called Mothering Sunday, and so both her boys reached out to her, thankfully, and checked in with her. And it's also called Laetare Sunday or Refreshment Sunday in the middle of Lent. And we turn toward a little bit of lightening of our Lenten sobriety right now on this Sunday and focus on forgiveness in a new way. Jesus tells us parables about what heaven is like when someone returns to the life of God. And in among a series of stories about the joy of discovery of lost items, a lost sheep who was searched for, a lost coin that was found, he tells another story today. As Jesus' parable describes, there's a man who had 2 sons. One son outrageously asked for his own share of his inheritance before the father has died. And for some strange reason, the father gives it to him freely without comment. The son goes away and spends all his money on excessive and riotous living and finds himself penniless and hungry, deciding then to return home even just to work as a hired hand for the father. The father waited and waited for the son's return, searching for him every day over the horizon of the land. And we see this waiting in the story, this painful waiting that many parents have experienced. When the son finally returns, he throws his son an amazing party, so delighted he is back. The son thought he might as well be dead. This son he thought might as well be dead, but is alive. But the other son, the one who's been steadily working, doesn't even seem to be acknowledged and refuses to go to the party thrown for his brother. He is so angry he can't even see straight and be happy that his brother is back. And the father quietly reassures him everything he has is his. I sometimes do a poll with parables. Who or what do you identify most with in this story? Who are you? Where are you in the story? We all have stories of our families with a brother or a sister or a mother or father that acted like a younger son or an older son, one who seemed to neglect their responsibility or took more energy or took other people's stuff, food or attention. I was sometimes guilty of that, taking my brother's food that he set aside for weeks at a time, some cookie he had. Anyway, sometimes it's an alcoholic brother or a rebellious sister, or just part of a broken family dynamic, or a story where someone in the family takes on too much responsibility and acts out angrily quite frequently, saying and feeling, "No one works as hard as I do." All these paths can potentially make us feel separated from God and from one another. In his beautiful description of his journey, looking at Rembrandt's painting, The Prodigal, Henry Nouwen describes himself as having been more like the older son, and then finally admitting that he's sometimes like the younger son too, ultimately being called to be more like the giving and forgiving father in the parable. For me, this story is like a compass, as I have found myself in places in life where I was neglectful of my responsibility in certain situations, and in times where I perhaps took on too much responsibility. It's easy as a priest, the system's kind of set up for that, take on the responsibility. And I thought I needed something like a celebration for a lost brother at times. I remember one time where I'd worked really hard while on vacations, during evenings, weekends for my former bishop, Tom Shaw. And I was serving on the standing committee. It's an extra task that priests take on in addition to your normal duties. And it was one extra meeting after another that was needed that I had to call together until we had sold much of the extra property that the diocese didn't need until before the market crashed. So we had this kind of urgency about our work. And when we got to the annual convention where people were thanked, there were lots of people retiring and new positions acknowledged. And then there was this quick thank you for the standing committee for their time and service. And that was it, I wondered. After all those extra hours we had spent on these substantial projects, it was clearly an elder son moment for me. It felt like a punch in the gut. It's like, what? When I have been wasteful or disregarding of my responsibility, I have to ask either forgiveness of my wife or my children or my God. And when I've taken on too much responsibility, I sometimes get severe, like the Pharisees, laying heavy burdens upon others, kind of expecting them to take the same level of responsibility as I am, no matter what, and feeling angry when people don't do their part, or feeling like I haven't had enough recognition for the hard work I've done. Are you with me? Yeah, you're there. It happens too, right? Most of us, I bet, have moved between these poles in our lives. Too little responsibility or too much. And it's almost impossible to get the balance just right in life, where we feel like we have enough time to savor what is before us, the people around us, the goodness of life, or enough time to get what we need to get done. And either pole can separate us from God or from each other. And the needle goes back and forth on this compass, this parable compass that we live into if we allow ourselves to be guided by it. Very tricky balance. And we move between the two brothers in the story. Just like we might move between the two sisters in that other story Jesus tells in Luke of Mary and Martha. Martha is the one who's doing all the work in the kitchen, and she's banging the pots around and really frustrated by Mary, who sits at Jesus' feet learning what he has to teach. And Jesus comes and says, Mary has chosen the better portion. And wow, it's like a punch in the gut to Martha. We still need to do both. And he doesn't say, you've done the wrong thing, Martha, at all. We need both. But Mary has chosen the better way. It's a better path. And surprisingly, it turns the world upside down. Outrageous. Are we a congregation here of older brothers? Are we the responsible ones here? Do most churches seem to favor the responsible ones? Do we? I think generally that's probably at least the way we portray ourselves when we come to church, right? We dress up well and kind of look responsible at least. So it's not a bad influence on each other. Or are we a congregation of younger ones? I don't know. If we feel we are the more responsible ones, do we have trouble believing that God is as forgiving as the father in the parable? And then because of that, do we sometimes become just like the Pharisees who have all the answers and live on just the judgment side of life only? Or have we not stepped up to the plate and taken the responsibility that we need to take? And it's back and forth, and the needle goes as we look at our compass with this story of the parable. As I was thinking about this parable from other frames of reference, I have to admit, when reading this parable with others around the globe, like a parish in Africa or a parish in Haiti, I wonder if they might see us as individuals or our whole congregation as being more like the younger son, with all the resources we have, and how are we using them, and how do we use them well, even in the context we're in, and what would they see when they looked at our spending, church budgets, or national budgets? Would many of them see us as spending way too much on certain things, and certainly relative to where they are in terms of basic needs, like basic needs, food and shelter, and we're struggling for this? And what if we were to look at personal budgets? Would they have these deep questions about why we do not feel as though we have enough? What's that about? Why do you always feel like you don't have enough? What possible world is that? Would they feel as though we've received our inheritance already, like the younger brother? Where are you in the story? If you're the younger brother and living wastefully, how do you come back to the one who loves you no matter what? How do you come back and keep coming back? If you're the older brother and being so responsible that you are almost mad at the world, can you not hear the grateful words of the Father who reminds you, all that I have is yours. All that I have is yours. And take a break and rest and listen to that and take it to heart and find yourself in balance and be more gentle toward yourself. But I had to celebrate. One of you is really lost and they're alive again. Can you hear that too? In the end, compassion is shown to both brothers. in amounts that each need, even though it always doesn't seem that way. In the end, compassion of the Father is what returns us all back to God and back to each other. We can't read it without the whole context of the gospel story. In the end, Jesus' resurrection after his death is an assertion that God is always with us. You're forgiven. Peace is the first word Jesus says after he's betrayed. Peace, I am with you always to the end of the age. I'm always with you. Don't ever forgive up on me. I haven't forgiven up on you. I'm always with you. It's the message. It's our whole message. It's the arc of the gospel. And we're always called to be together as people, back with a loving Father who loves us, and back together to find a place where we won't ever reach a place where God won't reach out to us. Even if we're angry or wasteful, we're always called back into relationship. In a high expectation culture like Northern Virginia, we live in this high expectation culture. Our habit is to blame ourselves if things don't go right, either in school or athletics or work or economics, and judgment wins over mercy. And they have to live in balance with each other, but mercy has to win in the end. Judgment can't win. And the rabbis understood this. Jesus understood this very carefully and very intentionally. Mercy has to be the victor in our lives. Grace and forgiveness have to win out. And it's the place where we claim ourselves together. We either have to get good at forgiving ourselves in this high expectation culture, or we don't survive. We have to find a gentler place of gentle expectation. Or we get buried under a pile of self-accusation and blame. Or like a younger brother, just feel persistently not good enough, and then we go squander it all, right? Because, I can't ever measure up, so I have to go squander everything, a kind of a response. And the gospel says forgiveness has to win in the end. I often use that Jesus prayer. Look it up, but it goes, Jesus, Son of the living God, have mercy on me, a sinner. It goes through the whole process of engaging with Christ and God and asks for mercy and acknowledges our vulnerability, and we ask for mercy. And we have to forgive ourselves, 1,000 times. And then when we start to do that, it's easy to forgive each other. It becomes a lot easier when we turn towards somebody else needing forgiveness. And we find ourselves reunited with God, reunited with others. And in low expectation culture, it's the opposite. We tend to blame everyone else for our problems. Neither are that functional, right? Our gospel invites us to a firmness of purpose and a gentleness of approach. Firm and gentle together, with magnetism coming back and again to the loving Father. Having been forgiven 1,000 times, it's easier to forgive someone else around us. But it's never a free-for-all. It's always a relationship of engagement and connection with each other. Come back. All I have is yours. My daughter was lost and now is found. If we use this story as a compass, claim yourself today as the younger son, tomorrow as the elder son, and maybe even be like the Father in the end and make it a journey to come back home, fall away, come home again, fall away, come home again, and eventually become more and more generous, loving and forgiving like the Father who seeks us out at great cost. It's God who's seeking you. God longs for you to be in this together and for us to be together in this. And find yourself in the story. Think back on your life and what role you're playing now. And then listen to the Father's invitation and compassion and grow. Amen.